Good evening, everyone. My name is Torres of Datamarts, how to use them. So, this is me. I'm a data platform MVP trainer with some certifications, and I live in Malta. I'm the leader of Malta Data Platform User Group. So, on the right side of the screen, you can see some contacts. Feel free to get in touch. It will be a pleasure to stay in touch. So the agenda today, I'll talk about what's a single source of truth, the traditional data warehouse architecture, what's a data mart, exploratory versus explanatory analysis, and the Power BI data marts itself, demonstrations about the Power BI data marts themselves. So, what's a single source of truth? The point is that the companies need a single place to use for BI analysis and reporting. Why the companies need a single place for that? Because if we have multiple places storing information for the company, what will happen is that some reports at some point will tell the company is having profit. And some reports at the same moment may tell the company is losing money. And this is totally possible to happen at the same time. One report telling the company has profit, another one is losing money, and no one knows why. Because they are using different sources of the data. One source is filtering by one set of information, another source is filtering by another set of information, and they don't match. So the company needs a single source of truth, a centralized point to hold the information for the company and be able to use this centralized source as a source for analytical data and reporting. So the single source of truth, centralized data for data intelligence. This can be a data warehouse, this can be a data lakehouse, or even other approaches. Multiple applications will need to be integrated. So to build the single source of truth, we need to ingest data from multiple sources, multiple applications. Multiple models will need to be integrated into a single data model, which will become the single source of truth of the company. And the information needs to have this point as a single source. So we can generate an analytical report, analyze the data of the company, analyze the history of the company from a single source. Let's analyze what was the traditional data warehouse architecture. In an old and traditional data warehouse architecture, not so old, but a traditional data warehouse architecture, we have multiple data sources. These are the production applications. So we ingest the data from the production applications into a central point. This central point can be a data warehouse, data lake house, one of them. This ingestion can be done using Azure Data Factory, for example. We're talking about cloud. So we could use Azure Data Factory to make this ingestion process. The modeling in this single source of truth sometimes is quite complex. Why? Because it's holding all the history for the entire company. So sometimes it's a bit complex for an end user to get an information from this modeling. So we try to make something more easy for an end user to use and generate reports from. So from this single source of truth, from this central point, we generate data models. These data models were known as cubes or semantic models as well. So the idea is to be a subset of all the data in the single source of truth of the company, and to be easy for the end user to understand. So the end user can easily understand the content of the data model. And from this data model, we generate a report. It's possible, of course, to generate reports directly from the single source of truth, but the modeling is more difficult to understand. So we use the data models to generate the reports. So this is, let's say, an historical approach. In the past, we were used to a tool called SQL Server Analysis Services. SQL Analysis Services was responsible for the cubes and to provide analytical data for reporting. Power BI took the ownership of this area. So Power BI is the responsible to produce the data models and to make reporting and dashboard. And the single source of truth is used as a source to Power BI. And this ensures how the data in Power BI is trustworthy. Because if Power BI starts getting data from many different places, managed in different ways, so Power BI may be getting data from sources that are not so trustworthy, and this may not generate a good result. So, from this concept, let's talk about what's a data mart. A data mart is not only a technology that was created now for Power BI. Data mart is a technical concept. The idea of a data mart is to be a subset of the data warehouse. Either data warehouse, data lake house. The idea is to be a subset of the data warehouse, more focused. For example, the single source of truth is for an entire corporation, but a data mart could be focused in a specific department, for example. User-friendly, more user-friendly than the single source of truth. And sometimes would be a semantic model, so very user-friendly for the end user. So this is a data mart. Oh, isn't this the same as that cube that we saw on the previous image? Yes, it is. That cube that we saw on the previous image can be called as a data mart. And what's the Power BI Data Mart benefit? What's the Power BI Data Mart is bringing to us? So, Data Mart benefits. We can implement what is called a top-down architecture. So, I just explained about single source of truth. Let's say that the single source of truth is uniting data from a global corporation. Using a top-down architecture, from this global point, we can distribute subsets of data, regional data, for example, data for a specific branch of the company, and so on. So we can distribute the data using a top-down architecture. The opposite is also possible, a bottom-up architecture. In which situation would we use a bottom-up architecture? If one specific department of the company started to build their own data services, for example, using Excel, they start to build a lot of Excel files to organize their data because no one was taking care of the organization of their data. And out of the blue, they need to create reports from the data located on those Excel files. So those Excel files need to be stored in some more organized point to be used as a source for reporting. So this would be a bottom-up architecture. A department is started by itself to generate data and organize data by themselves. Then we get their departmental data and put a level up, organizing the modeling of that using a data mart. And one great benefit of the data mart is what is called exploratory analysis. I will give more details about this, but let me tell you a secret. Until the creation of the Power BI Datamarts, Power BI was not so good with exploratory analysis. Power BI is good on the opposite, which is called explanatory analysis. And this Power BI is great. On exploratory analysis, Power BI was not so good until a year ago when data marts were created. And the data marts can also help us to put an end to mass of Excel files that sometimes some departments of the companies create. Where is the file? What do I mean? It's a new feature, Power BI Datamarts, so it may bring the solution for some problem. If it doesn't bring a solution for some existing problem, why the feature exists? So where is the file? What the problem is this feature solving? So let's imagine that the Power BI developer created this beautiful dashboard, this great dashboard. The developer demonstrated the dashboard to the user. The user loved the dashboard. The user says the dashboard is absolutely great. But then the user says, but could I have it in Excel? Could I have this dashboard in Excel? So I will show to you now, I will expose to you now a real picture of the Power BI developer when he hears this question. This is the Power BI developer after hearing this question. So after all the work, the user asks the information in Excel. So now it's time for me to reveal a big secret. Why this happens? Why the user keep asking and asking and asking for the data in Excel? Why the user keep doing that with us? Keep doing this torture with us. The reason for this is the difference between what is called exploratory versus explanatory analysis. These are two different kinds of analysis. Power BI was always great on explanatory analysis, but was lacking features on exploratory analysis. The lack of exploratory analysis features give the user reasons to ask, could I have the data in Excel? So the idea of Power BI Datamarts is to solve this problem, put exploratory analysis in the hands of the user, and the user will never again ask you an Excel file, will not have the need to ask you for an Excel file after this. But let's translate everything I just said. What's exactly the difference between explanatory and exploratory analysis? What's exactly the difference? Explanatory analysis is intended to explain something that you already know, and the target is a business user. The one who is the responsible for the dashboard will explain an information to the business user and will use the dashboard for that. On the exploratory analysis, on the other hand, the responsible for the data doesn't have the information yet, doesn't know anything about the data yet. So he needs to explore the data to discover something. The explanatory analysis happens when you already know what the data is telling you. The exploratory analysis happens when you don't know yet what the data is telling you, and you need to explore the data to discover that. So the explanatory analysis already has a conclusion about the data, which will be demonstrated to the business user. The exploratory analysis has no conclusion yet. Is the data analyst looking for conclusions? He is trying to discover something from the data. On the explanatory analysis is where we use the techniques of storytelling, data storytelling. That's where we are telling a story because we have the subject to tell. We have the conclusion. And once we have the conclusion, we need to tell the story. But how could we tell a story if we don't have a conclusion? So we need to explore first, researching the data, trying to find conclusions, and later making the explanation to the business user using the storytelling techniques. The explanatory analysis ends with a call to action. This is part of the techniques of data storytelling. You conclude your story on a data storytelling presentation using call to actions to lead the business users to take actions from the data according to your conclusions. But on the exploratory analysis, you are searching for conclusions. So it finishes when you discover what is useful and you have an information to explain to the business user. In fact, when the exploratory analysis reaches a conclusion, that's when the explanatory analysis starts the work to explain that conclusion to the business user. Datamarts are bringing exploratory analysis to Power BI. And that's the point. And this explains a lot about why the users always keep asking, could I have this data in Excel? Your dashboard is beautiful, but could I have this data in Excel? Why? Because that user has no conclusion yet. That user is trying to explore the data to reach a conclusion. So that user believes he will explore better the data if he uses Excel. Not anymore, because now Datamarts are bringing exploratory features to inside Power BI. And this is only one of the problems that the Datamarts solve. One of the problems, the lack of exploratory features. But there is more. Where is the fire? The other problem is related to self-service. Imagine that situation about Excel files in a department of the company. So you have a lot of Excel files, so complex that some Excel files access all the Excel files, which get data from all the Excel files, and the dashboard ends up built over this web of Excel files, this giant web of Excel files. Isn't my dashboard beautiful? Is what the end user will ask you. The end user will show you his dashboard, proud of the result. Isn't my dashboard beautiful? But this is exactly that situation, where the front end is nice, beautiful and fluffy, and the back end is a completely monster. The back end is a completely monster. That's a situation that we need to solve. In this kind of situation, we solve using Datamarts with the bottom-up approach. Instead of building the dashboard using all these Excel files, we can build a data mart using these Excel files. The transformations would be in the data mart. Then from the data mart, many reports could be built, and not a single one, but multiple reports could be built from a single data mart. The data mart would organize the data, which is badly distributed in Excel files. So the data marts allow us to apply the top-down approach or the bottom-up approach. These are two approaches that we can use with Power BI data marts. And the data marts are stored in an Azure SQL database, enabling top-down and bottom-up data marts architecture. So top-down, this means that from the central point, you are distributing a subset of data to a regional data mart, for example, to a data mart for one branch. And when you do that, you are creating an Azure SQL database. You get as a gift from Microsoft an Azure SQL database to organize that subset of your data. On the opposite, if you choose the bottom-up architecture to get data from multiple files, in the same way, you are getting an Azure SQL database to organize the data from those Excel files. And you are doing that in an Azure SQL database. But this Azure SQL database is completely managed by Power BI itself. You don't need to be concerned about the management of this Azure SQL database. Power BI manages it. So let's see a demonstration about Power BI Datamarts. So I will make the demonstration with the bottom-up approach. I have here 3 Excel files. So I will be loading these 3 Excel files into the data mart. I'll be loading these into the data mart. Since these Excel files are in my local machine, I need to use an on-premise data gateway to make the load to the data mart, of course. So I have an on-premise data gateway turned on here. And now I have here a workspace. This is a premium workspace. Premium per user, okay, but it works. And then I'll create a data mart. Data mart is in preview for more than a year. It's becoming quite stable, very stable. I will not prevent myself from using data marts because it's marked as preview. It's more than a year in preview. So let's call this data mart Adventure. Create. So I import data from Excel. Decided to be a bit slow exactly now in the middle of the presentation. So moving on. So I'll import from Excel. I have here the path, local path of my Excel files. I put the path here, and I use my on-premise data gateway. On-premise data gateway to connect to these Excel files. First one. So the first one is related to product. I'll click here and go to directly to transform data. Then I'll get the other ones, Excel workbook. The second one is a table with the product models. Product model, create product model. Now the last one is transaction history. So get data, Excel workbook. Transaction history, create. That's it. So let's start with some transformations on big product. I will change the name to product. I will remove some columns that I don't need. Discontinue date, cell end date, cell start date. I don't need. Then style, class. Let me select these three first. Remove. Then style, class, product line, days to manufacture, weight, unit measure, size, measure code, size. I don't need nothing from this. Okay. So I simplified the product table a lot, and I can merge this with product model. So before merging with product model, let me be sure that the data type is the same. Product model, it is marked as text. No, it needs to be a whole number. That's it. Now merge queries. I merge the product with the product model by the product model ID. Product model ID. Okay. Then here I will expand and choose the fields that I want to bring to inside the product table. I want to bring the name field, the name of the model. Let's use the original columns prefix. Then I will name this as model name. It's not totally new. It seems totally new, but it's only a sample of the data. The full data set is not completely new. Okay, I don't need the product model table anymore because I did this join. So I'll disable load. This is a Power Query trick because when we mesh, the table becomes a dynamic table, but if I disable the load, it becomes a normal table again. And then we have the transaction history. I'll not make any transformations on the transaction history, it's fine already. So let's save this. Let's wait a bit while it loads the data. And that's it, we have our tables. We have the product table and the transaction history table. So we have both tables here. Then I talked a lot about the features for exploratory analysis. In fact, it was demonstrated on the previous session. For example, I can make visual queries. I can explore my data here using visual queries. So let's bring transaction history here. Then I bring the product table here. I will merge these queries. Now I'm merging transaction history with product. Okay. Okay. I need to choose the key. Then I'll choose which field I will bring. I will bring only the model name, which was already the result of a merge made on the Power Query. Now I'm making a merge only on the query, not in Power Query. So I brought the model name. Then I'll make a group. Let's group the data, group by model name. Let's make a total, a sum of the actual cost value on this table. And there it is. So I have the total of sales by model of the products in this set of data. So in a few moments I could explore my data. It was possible for me to explore my data and discover something. Let's say total by model. But let's say that I'm a stubborn user and I still want to see this data in Excel. Okay, fine. There is the option to open in Excel. Go ahead, open in Excel. That's the user choice. So I enable edition, enable content. So it's telling me this SQL query will be executed over the data mart. I ask to execute, but I need to authenticate, and I need to authenticate using my Power BI account. The authentication is done using my Power BI account. Connect. And here it is. The sales aggregated by model in an Excel linked to the data mart. Total linked to the data mart. Okay, but some users, more stubborn users, could still think, oh, but it's too boring to make this visual query and so on. Okay, do you know SQL? Go for SQL. Go for SQL and make it in SQL. Select from product in June transaction history. On product ID equal to transaction history dot product ID. Then I would like to get the name of the product. The name of the product, if I'm not mistaken, is name. Name as product. And the sum of actual cost as total. Then a group by name. And what you are seeing in this session is that I'm building a query over data stored in Power BI. I'm executing a SQL query over data stored in Power BI. Is it or it's not an exploratory analysis feature, allowing us to explore the data and even filtering the data, having some of account cost higher than 0. I don't want the 0 ones. Let's filter that. So I'm exploring the data, investigating the data, and I can still open this result in Excel and save my query. I can save my query. Total by product. And the data mart becomes the source for many reports, because I will explore the data mart, discover information inside my data, discover something that I would like to explain to the business user about the data, then I would build a report over the data mart to explain that information. One single information? No, we expect to discover lots of things over the data in a data mart. So we can organize the data mart in such a way to already include some standards for the report. We can build a standard model here for the report. For example, you are seeing two Power BI tables. I can already make the relationship between these two tables. Product ID, I establish a relationship between these two tables. By establishing this relationship between two tables, every report that uses this data mart as a source will already get this table with the relationship established. The relationship will already be there. And this is just a starting point because you can create measures as well. You can create a standard model that will be the source for many reports. Every report based on the data mart will be using this standard model established here. When we create the data mart, it also creates a data set. This dataset is the method the data mart used to expose the model. The model features that I just created are created inside the dataset itself, while the data mart is underneath an Azure SQL database. In fact, this was mentioned on the previous session. We'll go to settings and we see on server settings the address of the Azure SQL database. So if the user is very stubborn and still wants to access the SQL data, we can access the SQL data. So connect directly to SQL and get the SQL data from that data mart. So the data mart is giving us as a gift an Azure SQL database, and we can connect to this Azure SQL database. That's not a problem at all. So it's connecting. I can see the database. Here is my database. And what's interesting is that we can't see. Let it open. We can't see any tables. There are no tables. Why? Because we don't have permission to see the tables. The database is managed by Power BI. Power BI is the responsible for this database. We don't have permission to see the tables. We can see views. The tables that we created in our data mart, they appear for us as views. The model product view and model transaction history view. Then we have the following options. If I decide in Power BI to generate a report based on the data set, the data set generated by the data mart, the report I will generate will start from all the modeling features that are included in this data set. The modeling features are on this data set. But if I make a different decision and decide to start a new report accessing the data directly from SQL, I will start from views in SQL without the centralized modeling features that I may have included in the data mart. It's a decision for the ones who access the data mart. So what we are seeing is a huge new power inside Power BI. We are seeing the power to explore the data, the ability to give exploration power to our users, to our Power BI users. They will be able to play with the data, query the data, transform the data in the way they would like, and leave all these created as queries inside the data mart. That's it. So now the Datamarts are bringing to Power BI the exploratory analysis capability. And the idea is that by using correctly the Power BI Datamarts, we may not suffer anymore from users requesting the data in Excel. What I mean is that from now on, we understand when the user wants to explore and when the user wants to explain. And we understand what we need to deliver to the end user. That's it. So some reference, an article, a detailed article about Power BI Datamarts, and a YouTube video about Power BI Datamarts as well for you to try about it. And again, my contacts, feel free to get in touch. It will be a pleasure to stay in touch. Any questions?
There are no questions in the chat.
No questions? Okay, thank you very much everyone for attending. It was a pleasure to make this presentation. I hope everyone liked it.